Hello, welcome. It's your boy, Oliver Hoots. Today, special stream, because today we are going to be looking at SCPs. Now, if you don't know what an SCP is, I'm going to explain it real quick. So, an SCP is something from this website called the S.C.P. Foundation. Essentially, what the S.C.P. Foundation is it's a it's like a form. There's a board with oh, hi. Amy, good to see you. But as I was saying, so an SCP is, it's basically like a fake. SCP Foundation is a fake organization that keeps like paranormal and spooky stuff like contained. It's not real, but all these pages are supposed to be entries into this like facility. I think it's really interesting, honestly, and I think that there's some really good ones. And I actually want to start by showing you one that I like. We'll quickly go through that, and then I'm going to show you what we're all really here for, which is really bad ones. And I'll explain when we get to it. So first, let's start with SCP-2399. Okay. By order of the Overseer Council, the following file describes a hostile, anonymous, alien superstructure capable of causing an SK class barren Earth end-of-the-world event, and is level 5/2399 classified. Unauthorized access is forbidden. Okay, it has the containment class of Keter. Every SCP has a containment class. It's a really interesting thing where it just basically shows you how dangerous the SCP is. Keter implies that it is a danger to life, and like it is a direct threat to people. Redacted. Yeah, that's a big part of the SCP is redactions and stuff. Yeah, actually, this one, the whole point is that it can cause Armageddon. So we'll get into that real quick. The special containment procedures. Due to SCP-2399's location and nature, physical means of containment are currently impossible. Implanted Foundation agents in major observatories are to contain footage or images of SCP-2399. An ongoing misinformation campaign is in effect, which has thus far been able to completely suppress any knowledge pertaining to SCP-399 from public awareness. Foundation satellites in orbits around Jupiter are to maintain constant vigilance of SCP-2399's reconstruction efforts, and makes all attempts to hinder that process should SCP-2399 reach a minimum of 75% completion. Additionally, a perimeter of long-range electromagnetic jamming symbols, a barrier array, has been situated in high Jupiter orbit. Any transmissions intercepted by this array are to be similarly decoded and logged. In the event of SCP-2399 surpassing 75% completion, or an information breach in the jamming perimeter, necessary Foundation personnel will engage in Protocol Legionnaire 5. See Addendum 2399L5, given its completion by the time. Now, something that you've probably noticed is that these are all very technical. They try to come off as like a like technical document you would see if you were in like a proper foundation. So it can be a slog sometimes, but the bad ones aren't really going to matter. Yeah, it's a lot of techno-babble. I love science fiction, so techno-babble is my favorite for sure. So let's actually get into what SCP-2399 is. So the description. SCP-2399 is a massive complex mechanical structure currently located in Jupiter's lower orbit. Since its visually discovered in 1963, SCP-2399 has been observed to use highly advanced antimatter-based weaponry to create special disruptions and devastating atmospheric data expunge, observable in a large red vortex commonly known as the Great Red Spot. SCP-2399 appears to be damaged, possibly due to an impact with the moon Io, before coming into rest in its current position. SCP-2399 has been observed releasing a multitude of small octopoid repair droids in efforts to repair the damage it has taken. Some of these droids will remain near SCP-2399, while others will patrol nearby moons or deeper into the gases of Jupiter itself. Search of parts of SCP-2399 is missing. Computer models estimate that SCP-2399 is at 59% completion, with a current rate of 0.78% annually. This rate has increased from an estimated 0.12% in 1970. Okay, and despite its damage state, SCP-2399 seems to possess a limitless power supply, advanced electromagnetic shielding, matter-disrupting weaponry, and the ability to repair damage done to itself, and a precise tracking and targeting system. See Addendum 23992-B. I'm glad you like the background music. I just decided to go for some copyright-free classic music, and it's really working out. So I'm definitely gonna keep this going. Wait. Okay. Due to large difference in technological advancement between the creator of SCP-2399 and our own, for all intents and purposes, SCP-2399 is currently indestructible by human means. In theory, SCP-2399 may be left vulnerable by a powerful enough electromagnetic pulse. However, this technology does not exist. Huh. Hi. My cat decided that he wanted to be a little baby, want attention. Oh, hey, Forrest. Glad to see you made it. Well, yeah, since 1971, SCP-2399 has been the recipient of an unending stream of electromagnetic-based communications originating in the Triangulum Galaxy, roughly 3 million light-years from Earth. The means of SCP-2399's travel to our solar system and the means of its communications are all unknown. From 1971 to 1985, SCP-2399 consistently received a signal-encoded message which, through code-breaking and translation efforts, appears to be a command to repair the damage it occurred upon entering our solar system. After this time, the barrier array was established to intercept these messages. This coincided with the period of radio silence from the origin of the communications until 1996, when different order began transmitting. The barrier array has thus far prevented SCP-2399 from receiving this command. And then there's addendums. So basically, if you didn't understand what was going on here, I wouldn't blame you. It's a lot to take in. Essentially what this is they've taken the Great Red Spot on Jupiter and essentially saying that it's a super weapon that is been charging since the 70s. And they've been doing what they can to slow it down. but even they don't really know what it is. So I think this is a really interesting one. There's more you can read into about it if you feel like it, but I only wanted to show this as an introduction to SCP. What we're really going to be looking at today is SCP-100J. The J SCPs are joke SCPs, but this one is special in that it archives a lot of very bad SCPs. So, SCP-100J. Object Class, Keter. The Special Containment Procedures. SCP-100J is kept in a 20 by 20 meter containment structure on the bottom floor of Site-19. The structure is to be lined with plasticite? Baked up by 4 meters of steel. Attempts to encase the SCP and telekill have met with absolutely zero success. SCP-100J is to be kept in a plastic bucket in the middle of the containment structure. There's to be round-the-clock surveillance of SCP-100J. Security on SCP-100J is minimal at most times, needing only one guard on a rotating schedule. However, whenever new operative joins the staff at Site-19, a security detail of at least 20 fully trained security operatives as well as 10 agents are beyond duty outside the containment structure for 72 hours. Okay, mijo. Have fun. See you in a bit. But yeah. After 72 hours, if no new SCP has been spawned, normal security practices are to be reinstated. Should a non-sentient SCP emerge from SCP-100J, a team of researchers is to be dispatched into the containment structure to determine the properties of the new SCP and to determine how best to decommission it. Should a sentient SCP emerge from 100J, Site-19 is to go into full alert and all manpower brought to the bear on containment structure. Agents Clef, Kondraki, Gears, and Redacted are to be immediately informed so they can begin forming decommission strategies. Should an SCP from SCP-100J make it past the bottomless floors of Site-19, an on-site nuclear weapon is to be detonated. Okay. SCP-100J appears to be a 42 centimeter by 32 centimeter mound of equine feces. The SCP maintains a constant moistness as well as an internal temperature of 38.3 degrees Celsius. Whenever a new operator joins Site-19, there is a 75% chance that a new SCP will be spawned from the SCP-100J. There's a 50% chance of the new SCP being sentient. Non-sentient SPCs come in a variety of categories, many being weapons, all of which bestow extraordinary abilities on the user. The majority of such weapons are swords, with the small minority being rather awkwardly modified firearms. Yeah, did you just realize that this is just a tub of horse shit? This is literally what this is. Additional non-sentient SCPs do 10 items that either work better than they should or work in direct opposition of the way that they should. Sentient SCPs come in two main categories. The majority of humanoid SCPs appear to idolize versions of the new operative, physically attractive, and a multitude of abilities, and tend to make people feel comfortable in their presence. Non-humanoid SCPs are usually some form of enhanced normal creature, but with bizarre coloring. Just wait. This gets good. So, the list of SCPs created from SCP-100J starts with SCP Redacted D. Little Addie. SCP appears to be Adolf Hitler at 6 years old. SCP was terminated without any alterations to the time stream. So let's take it another one. SCP-048D. Joey. Okay. This is a decommissioned one. You're going to find out why it's decommissioned in a second. But it is the object class Euclid, but neutralized. We'll quickly read off the redacted containment procedures. SCP-048 is to be referenced to as Joey in the event that he is referenced to as SCP-048 or an object. Joey becomes angry and often violent if he is not given an apology. Upon receiving an apology, seems to immediately be appeased, remarking that he forgives the perpetrator and then resuming his usual activities with a standard demeanor. SCP-048 has been given the full furnishing living quarters, and any reading, movies, or television he asks for is to be granted, so long as it is released prior to his containment in 2005. He is also granted access to any literature, movies, or television released after 2005 with permission of Dr. Klein. He is also allowed any food or drink he requires, except for alcoholic beverage and chocolate. Any personnel found to be given SCP-048, the aforementioned items are to be suitably reprimanded. SCP-048 is to be allowed access to all of the areas of the compound, except for other SCP containment areas, and the areas with or near to exist from the compound. SCP-048 has shown to be friendly unless provoked by aforementioned items or given alcoholic beverage, but will try to escape if given the opportunity. Low-level tranquilizer darts are to be used in the event of the escaped attempt, and he is to be returned to his cell without the privileges of free roaming. Human food, literature, television, or movie for 2 weeks. In the event of a successful escape, tranquilizer darts are to be used to sedate him, and if necessary, all forms of non-lethal force are temporarily allowed. Upon capture, he is to be returned to his cell without the privileges of free roaming, human food, literature, television, or movies for a full month. Oh, hello, Genta. Great to see you. And welcome. We're just reading off some pretty bad SCP. Okay. SCP-048 is a mid-sized dog of unknown breed with distinctive human features, intelligence, and personality. Subject has demonstrated the ability to speak, as well as the enhanced physiology for both canines and Homo sapiens. Subject claims his name is Joey, but refuses to offer any additional personal information when questioned in an interview. When Joey was allowed access to alcohol, he appears to give information much more willingly, but this is not advised as he becomes violent at the slightest provocation. Aw, thank you. In such situations, Joey has been observed to be able to move at speeds unrecorded for either dogs or humans. They have enough jaw strength to bite clear through bone. Addendum. Those with level 2 security clearance should see document 534A, which just says the effects of alcohol on SCP-048, better known as Joey and the dog, are enclosed, and entails security footage of a poker game involving Joey and several Class D personnel. Quickly explain, a Class D personnel is basically a death row inmate that SCP uses for experiments. Okay. SCP-04. Give me a beer, will you, Jack? Class D personnel 1. Joey, you know I'm not supposed to do that. Oh, come on, Jack. Fine. Have the rest of mine. 048, drinking the beer and speaking with an audible slur. Thanks, friend. So, Joey, your mom has been a real bitch, huh? 084 disappears from footage. Stream thing. God, man, I'm sorry. 408 returns to his seat. It's okay. I forgive you. Haha, you're an idiot. Now let's get back to the game, eh, boys? It's just a talking dog. It just gets angry when you taunt it. That's all this is. Let's find out what happened to it. SCP-084 is no longer allowed to fraternize along with Class D personnel behind closed doors. Alcohol is no longer permitted on site. Suggests that subject not be allowed to wander without armed attendant. Following multiple instances in which SCP-048 became violent, the difficulty of maintaining containment, and given the lack of useful research data on test subject, SCP neutralization was approved on redacted. Reason: inappropriate expenditure of resources. Subject was drugged under a dosage of tranquilizer in his usual evening meal. Upon being rendered unconscious, Dr. Redacted administered a lethal dose of barbiturate intravenously. I have some of these technical words, no problem. Like a lot of that stuff on SCP-2399, no problem. But some of it is just, it's too much for me. The subject remains have been remanded to Dr. Redacted for dissection and analysis, following which they were preserved in place in high-value item storage. Any personnel wishing to perform research on the taxidermy terrain should contact an L4 supervisor for permission. Yeah. So basically, SCP-100J exists to basically explain that these shitty SCPs were literally born from a bucket of horse shit, and it explains like why they were decommissioned. So let's check out a few more of these. Okay. Duke. Alright. Now this one I did not read at all. So the last one I actually had some idea of what it was before getting into it. This one I didn't read at all. So it's just as new to me as it is to you. Okay. SCP-083 is to be sealed inside of his containment area between the hours of 0700 and 1900. Otherwise, he is free to wander the rest of the containment facility freely, and as long as he is constantly monitored by at least a dozen level 2 containment staff. The containment area is to be furnished, however, SCP-083 Light requests as long as his requests do not violate standard SCP containment procedure. Guests are permitted to SCP-083's containment area beyond the hours of 1100 and 1400. However, please note that all female staff are advised not to develop an emotional attachment to SCP-083. If you feel as though you're becoming emotionally attached, please contact one of the psychologists on staff immediately. We would also like to remind Mrs. Redacted, Miss Redacted, and Dr. Redacted that there are several cameras in SCP-083's containment area. Okay. Every day at 0847 hours and 24/7 hours, a single blood bag contained type A, B, or AB blood from a virgin female human is to be placed within SCP-083's containment area, which the contained area must be sealed off for at least an hour. Failure to do so will often result in the termination of entire staff assigned to SCP-083. In the event that SCP-083 is not fed, evacuation procedure 083A is to be enacted immediately. SCP-083 has shown no intention of escaping and claims, "I like it here. I get damn near everything I want." However, subject has shown increasingly interest in several of the other SCPs on site. Redacted. It is advised by Dr. Redacted that he should not be allowed in other SCP containment areas for security reasons. See Addendum 083-D1. Yeah, apparently my dude needs virgin blood. Okay, let's find out why. This is why I wanted to stream this. These are amazing, and I really wanted to share them with everyone. Okay. So, SCP-083 appears to be a Caucasian male aged between 20 and 26. Why we couldn't figure out anything, like, closer? You know, that age range is... or whatever. Black hair, brown eyes, and 1.83 meters, 6 feet tall. Most often wears unremarkable clothing. Subject has identified themselves by the name Duke. However, he does not mind being called SCP-083 or simply 83 by personnel. He spends most of his time wandering the grounds of Site Redacted or in the recreation room making conversation with the staff. I'm sorry, I thought that this was supposed to be something you were like trying to contain. SCP-083 has no physical need to eat, although he often orders food. He seems to prefer meat and several commonly known brands of confectionery that have been ordered. Subject has no need to sleep either, but still requires a bed for his containment area. When asked about the sewer flies, I feel like laying down sometimes. I don't think that there is anything unusual about that. Staff interacting with SCP-083 have often reported him as gentle and polite to the majority of the staff, although some of the female staff reported him to Human Resources for numerous counts of sexual harassment. This behavior is to be strongly discouraged, and if complaints persist, he's to be locked in his containment area permanently. If he's not locked in his containment area permanently in the first place, like, I don't know. Like, what's the point of even having him contained? He just kind of seems to hang out on the facility. This is between funny and stupid. I mean that in the nicest way possible. Oh yeah, absolutely. Something I really want to like get across is that, you know, we're not making fun of the writers here. Like, it doesn't matter like why they made this or like what was going through their head, because at the end of the day, I don't know what like why they made this. But I'm glad they did. I'm glad I can like laugh at this. And all I can hope is that they kept going and they kept writing these and just kept getting better. But moving on. When tested for intelligence with a standard IQ test, he scored over 155 and has displayed remarkable logic and problem-solving skills, even being the cause of several breakthroughs with SCP Redacted and SCP Redacted, and also SCP Redacted. When questioned about his existence prior to the capture of SCP, he often claims to remember many historical events, the earliest being the execution of John Rogers in 1555. He claims to have seen data expunged. Okay. If SCP-083 is not fled blood every 12 hours, subject will become highly enraged and aggressive. Attempting to break out of his containment, the sole successful attempt resulted in 11 staff fatalities. It seems to be okay. So he has killed 11 people before, but we're just gonna keep letting him walk around. He just hangs out in the facility. Seems to be sort of preservation instinct. It supposed to be like an animal deprived of food, only on a much greater scale. When in the state, SCP-083 will actively seek out humans and attempt to feed off them. Subject can only be pacified if he can find a human fitting his standards for blood. See document 0838 ABOC. When he finds a satisfactory food source, subject will become cannibalistic, completely consuming it. If it is human or if it is a blood found in a pack, he will merely drink it. Upon sating his hunger, subject falls into a comatose state for roughly 12 hours. After feeding schedule must be recentered around his new cycle. When questioned about these rages, he claims to have no memory and refuses to speak of it, on one occasion even becoming violent when submitted to a polygraph test. Data expunged. What was expunged? We'll never know. 083 seems to have a regenerative property similar to SCP-076 and will regenerate even upon apparent death. 76 is... This one's familiar. Yeah. This one actually isn't bad though. So we're gonna skip that. Those with level 2 security clearance see documents 083 ABOC and documents 25 083 076. Document 083 ABOCC ABOC. Experiment C blood. In this test, SCP-083 was given several different kinds of blood without his knowledge. Given blood type O, reaction became enraged. Subsequently given normal blood dosage. Given blood from a non-virgin, reaction became enraged, subsequently given normal blood dosage. Blood from a male virgin. 083 looked around confused, looked directly into the security camera and scowled, and thought he were the victim of a practical joke. Drink the rest of the blood with no effects. This is still not recommended, as 083 becomes sullen and withdrawn with his next feeding. Given blood from a rape victim who otherwise was a virgin. Data expunged. Those with level 4 security clearance, please see 25083 076. It's also this thing right under it. At Containment Area 25, but it means... Hold on, I'm fairly sure... Yeah, they redacted it everywhere else, but right here. Awesome. Containment Area 25, by the means of the blood given to him at 083C, subject became immediately enraged, displaying a level of anger previously unrecorded. Subject proceeded to break out of his containment area, which unfortunately coincided with SCP-0762 showing signs of movement. When 0762 became active, secure personnel were unable to deal with both threats, and the containment situation of 076 and 083 failed, promoting High Command to send reinforcements. During this time, data expunge allowed 083 to find suitable food source of food doctor redacted, who was promptly killed and consumed. Recovered security footage from 12 hours later shows the 083 regain consciousness as High Command began to initiate the installation of the on-site warhead. Due to 0762's still continuing escape attempt at this point, all non-combative personnel had been evacuated from Containment Area 25, and most of the transportable SCPs. SCP-083 broke into the containment chamber of the now lost SCP Redacted, which has been deemed too hazardous to transport, and proceeded to wield it as a weapon. This action, however rash, allowed him to data expunge. He succeeded in occupying SCP-0762's period for a long enough time, with the evacuation of the remainder of the security forces until the on-site warhead was detonated and data expunged. And then we have the final bit, which is just a interview where... Oh, wait. The background music just decided. We're keeping that on, for sure. I didn't expect... Oh, I forget what that piece is called real quick. It's, yeah. Toccata in D minor by Bach. Okay. Okay. Dr. Redacted. For future reference, I must ask, where are you from? 083. Outer space, of course. Please be serious for the interview. Oh, you caught me. I'm actually from Earth. I need you to be more specific. Well, on a universal scale, Earth is very specific. Subject avoids the question for a period of time before Dr. Redacted is forced into a different line of questioning. Next question. Why did you decide to break the containment area of SCP Redacted and been fighting with 076? 083. I thought your security people might need help escaping. Shouldn't I get some kind of medal? I mean, I used a Keated level SCP as a weapon, putting myself in harm's way, not even attempting to escape. All sounds heroic enough to me. Next question. The Congressional Medal of Honor will do nicely. Are you aware of the current situation with 0762? No, please enlighten me. Data expunged, data expunged, data expunged. Send the log. And it just says that the reports involving 083's termination are currently under review. So, yeah. It's basically a well-mannered vampire who will still kill people, and they're just like, yeah, I mean, whatever, man. Okay. This is going good. I'm enjoying this. Let's move on to the next one. Which is 8860 vibrations. Ooh. Maybe not this one. Reverse air purifier. Now this I need to see. Yeah, sometimes it's better to just get the whole name. Oh no. Yeah. So a lot of the times when one of these gets decommissioned, the number is reopened, and then someone will write a better SCP with the original number. Yeah, I don't know. There's plenty to look at, so we'll just quickly go through this. I'm pretty sure this one works. No? Oh, wait. We found it. Alright. Oops. Just got to readjust everything. Perfect. There. Now, SCP-108. Object class, decommissioned. SCP-108 is to be kept in a 12 by 12 meter room at all times, except for allotted recreation time and testing sessions conducted on a bi-weekly basis. It is to be fed 3 times daily at scheduled meal times and given any furnishings for its room that it specifically requests. SCP-108 is not to be given access to communication devices with the exception of its weekly monitored phone call to its biological monitor every Friday at 1900 hours. 1 Class D personnel is permitted to visit SCP-108 for its monthly game of chess. Interruption of this activity is strictly prohibited by request of data expunged. SCP-108 is not allowed to possess or come into contact with any form of weaponry or objects that can be used as such, including but not limited to butter knives, steak knives, X-Acto knives, scissors, etc. Description. SCP-108 is a humanoid male, aged 30 years, with blonde hair and gray eyes. It stands at approximately 173 centimeters tall. SCP-108 prefers minimalistic clothing, preferably clothing that maximizes its range of motions on the ground that, if it cannot fight in it, there's no reason to wear it. SCP-108 is a physically and mentally healthy, possessing a cheery disposition and a taste for classical music and chess. He would very much enjoy my stream. which is requests to play at least once a month with a capable mind. Class D personnel are permitted to fill this request upon submission of data expunged to names redacted. SCP-108 exhibits significant martial prowess while in physical contact with any kind of weapon, melee or otherwise. Field tests have proven it has a target hit accuracy of 98% with several types of assault rifles, as well as personal firearms, composite bows ranging in weight from 9 to 54 kilograms, and crossbows. SCP-108 also displays proficiency in using a variety of close combat weapons such as knives, 100% accuracy in over 70 tests, swords, and even axes. SCP-108 claims to have never come into physical contact with any sort of direct design for combat previous to its containment and data expunged. Testing with demolitions and highly explosive materials is pending approval. While unarmed, no physical aptitude beyond the average motor skills of an adult human male is present. However, while in physical contact with any form of tool designed for combat, its reaction times increased by a factor of 200%. Given his almost precognitive danger sense, superhuman speed, breathing, and heart rate are also slowed and regulated during this time, even under extreme duress. As well as being skilled with any and all kinds of weaponry yet tested, SCP-108 exhibits proficiency in tactical and spatial reasoning, claiming never to have beaten in a game of chess or checkers except one time, their space game of chess, at the age of 9 years old. Field tests using live ammunition have proved that SCP-108 possesses an uncanny ability to think calmly and rationally under life-threatening situations. SCP-108 has taken several IQ tests. All test results come back showing an IQ greater of 180. SCP-108 has expressed the desire for human companionship. This request is still pending approval. SCP-108 is currently pending an upgrade to Euclid class due to its capability with all types of weaponry. Should its desire to escape, a likely attempts to contain it again would be difficult, if not catastrophic. Addendum. It has been determined that SCP's determinants outweigh its benefits. Determination approved. On redacted, SCP-107 was given SCP-572. Quickly explain what that one is. It's basically a sword that sucks, but when you get it, you think it's the best sword ever made. And it's told as reward for its good behavior. One writer gushed over the balance and craftsmanship of the blade, declaring it to be the only weapon for him. A Foundation scientist then demanded it to be returned. SCP-10 protested the demand and self-terminated during an attempt to escape. After trying a reverse triple flip off of the walls and out of the window, somehow managed to remove his own head with 572. Subject was recategorized as neutralized. I mean, it's just... I think it's a good way to end it, for sure. This one was, like, so uninteresting. It's just a dude who's good at, like, fighting with any weapon. That's it. Like, that's literally it. But they have him killed. But just like, oh yeah, here's the sword. Alright, now give it back. No. Proceeds to triple flip and cut his head off with a rusty, blunt sword. It's pretty good. Let's see. Moving right along. This next one I'm not going to read, but I'm going to read this little description. The bag of holding, which was SCP-685, appears to be a normal satchel capable of holding an unlimited quantity of items. It's literally an item from D&D. The SCP was turned inside out and vanished. Yeah, the reason I'm not going to read that one, it's the bag of holding is literally just an item from D&D. Like, these next few. We have large canine, which is just a large winged dog that they've just put to sleep. All right. Okay. And then we have 096. Actually, I'm pretty sure that is like a famous one. Yeah, that's the one from the game that like attacks you. But it used to be the Too Good air conditioner. An air conditioner that reduced the room temperature to 0 degrees. It was just melted down. Man, I would use that air conditioner every day. Like, that's not too good. That's perfect. That's where I need it. I need that air conditioner in my life. Okay. I'm just gonna quickly look through any of these and see if any of these are light. Yeah, we should read these. You know, the Impaler's Thumb seemed interesting. Let's go with that. Here we are. Oh, that's a short one too. Perfect. So, item number 153. Object class, Euclid. Standard containment procedures. SCP-153 is to be kept in a liquid nitrogen cooling tank, appropriate for its size, and stored in a standard Foundation freezing facility. Transportation of this object for any reason is to be only approved by level 4 personnel or greater, and Class D personnel are not allowed to interact with number 153. Ah. Regardless of clearance level, redacted, see below. SCP-153 is a preserved human thumb wrapped in ancient linen cloth. It is approximately 6 centimeters long and a brownish color. The object smells strongly of burning corpses. The paranormal properties of this item have yet to be fully tested or documented, but test subjects report heightened feelings of hostility to minorities and foreigners, as well as a sudden surge in patriotism while holding it on their person. Test subjects have also exhibited an extreme possessiveness over the object after testing has begun, becoming very paranoid about its safety. Legend states that this is the mummified thumb of the Wallachian national hero Vlad Tepes, better known as Vlad the Impaler. Legends also say that it possesses magical qualities and grants the holder power equal to the strength of their heart. Testing proves inconclusive. Object 153 was removed from northern Germany after police recovered it from the scene of a murder-suicide. 8 victims had been kidnapped, 3 women, 4 men, and 1 child, and impaled on long wrought iron spikes that were mounted on the wall of the subject's basement. The subject continued suicide by stabbing himself repeatedly in the neck with a pair of meat shears after police attempted to detain him for questioning. During autopsy, several pints of blood were found in his stomach, and further DNA testing proved it to be the blood of the victims discovered in the basement. The object was then confiscated by the police and sent to nearby Site 11, where it is contained and remains to this day. And the Addendum 1. Hey, has anyone seen this SCP? I think we lost it or something. It's just gone. They misplaced it. Of course. It's just a thumb that turns you into a super edgy racist. Some of these I don't even know like where to begin. Now this, we should check out the SCP-1060. Nice. Okay, and again, another pretty short one. Alright. SCP-106, Class Neutralized, previously Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-106 is to be kept in an underground cell constructed out of solid lead and granite bedrock. Okay. The cell must be in at least 30 feet below the observation deck to prevent data expunge. The observation deck is to be constructed out of a thick, transparent plastic suitable to walk on. Steel doors locked by 3 alphanumerical combinations, changed weekly, are to block off the ladder descending into the cell below. A similar door should be implemented at the entrance to the cell at ground level. In the event of a breach in security, hardening foam will be injected into the cell immediately to prevent contact with the subject. SCP-106 takes the form of a human female, approximately 5 feet 8 inches in height. Her clothing consists of a small denim skirt, as well as what appears to be a sports bra with a mysterious logo emblazoned on it. The object's face is locked in a perpetual smile, though those who see this smile are either disgusted by or attracted to it. She exhibits basic human necessities such as sleeping and blinking, but does not seem to eat or breathe. Additionally, she does not seem to be able to look directly up. Whether this is a physical or mental incapability or merely an aversion to looking in that direction is unknown. Why is this necessary for the containment? If any human individual comes within her sight, she will attempt to make contact with them by any means possible. She is not capable of superhuman feats, as far as researchers can tell, but seems to exhibit an attracting psychological effect on anyone who catches a glimpse of her face, making them want to draw near. When she makes contact with the human, she will immediately begin invading their abdominal area with her index finger through the navel. Upon making contact with some organ within the body of her victim, what organ she reaches for is unknown. SCP-106 will immediately explode within the force of a 20-kiloton nuclear bomb. Approximately 20 days after exploding, she will reconstitute herself and attempt to explode again. She appears to be impervious to any sort of external assault, though expunge refer to document 106. I don't even know where to... Why? How? And then even, maybe when and why. This is an interesting one, I guess. All individuals assigned to SCP-106 below level 4 clearance are ordered to redocument 106A. Those with level 4 clearance are strongly advised to redocument B. Document A. Under no circumstances are personnel to remain on shift for more than 8 hours. Under no circumstances are permanent staff allowed to enter the vault leading to SCP-106 cell entrance. Any personnel violating these rules will be immediately terminated. SCP-106 was successfully destroyed by subjecting it to simultaneous presence of SCP-048-D and SCP-053. SCP-106 attempted to unite with the latter object, but was promptly incapacitated by the effects of SCP-048-D, one violently mauled in physical form, rendering it completely incapacitated. After forcing SCP-048-D to vomit the remains it had ingested, and remaining the 2 dangerous SCP objects from the site. The remains of SCP-106 were collected and promptly incinerated. A proposal was made to bomb the facility, which had incinerator remains, but the staff of Research Section 15 deemed the previous procedures adequate. Level 4 personnel are required to act as if SCP-106 is still an active SCP object. The staff in charge of maintaining SCP-106 environment seems to have grown an attachment to her, though it is clearly not affected the SCP itself for obvious reasons. Adding the new low-class personnel into the containment area is inadvisable. Added by 05 redacted. Placing SCP-106 with an actual woman was a bad idea. In retrospect, we decided to simply put a shutter over the observation deck and leave the cell empty. Someone needs to explain this to the staff before they go crazy. The last bit, I like. Yeah, I mean, this one just kind of speaks for itself. She's a bomb. Well, let's go back. Let's quickly just look at these last few that didn't get their own page. There was the reanimated corpse of former United States President James Garfield, which was captured and incinerated. A evil goblin jester that likes to murder people, which was fed to SCP-682. And then there's the 8 billion humans that gain psychic powers when their brains are not exposed to radiation. All instances were allowed to be terminated by SCP-0762 as a reward for good behavior. Fantastic. I guess we could also just quickly read off the ones that we weren't able to find. Vibrations. SC. You learned a lot about SCP in the stream? Well, I'm glad you did. Like I said in the beginning, I really like SCP. I think that the concept is really interesting and that there are really good ones. It's just one of those problems where, like, the cringy ones end up being the one that, like, people remember. Like, even if they're written, they're ones that are written well, it still comes off as, like, why? Like, the Plague Doctor one. Like, it's actually interesting, but and it's very well written. Like, the person who wrote it clearly understands SCP and, like, how to make one that's interesting. But it's a Plague Doctor, and it says a lot of, like, really edgy stuff. So I feel like, you know, the average person gets introduced to this, like, Plague Doctor being like, oh, we need to, like, we need to get rid of this disease, and doesn't really specify what this disease is, and turns people into zombies. People are like, wow, that's cringy and weird. That's why I started off with 2399, because it's more of just like, we took this cool thing and then made it an SCP. Because, like, the red spot on Jupiter is a real thing. And they're just like, oh, we'll make an SCP. And they made it interesting. That's why this one's my favorite. Okay, but moving on. Let's get back to the jokes. So, yeah, the vibrations SCP that we couldn't find appeared to be a skin-tight suit that interacted directly with the subject's nervous system, granting them incredible powers. It was burned with no adverse side effects. The reverse air purifier acted as an air purifier, but in reverse. It was just melted down and then like line the 4 of 173, which is that really famous one they made the game about. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I feel like a lot of people also get introduced to SCP through the game, Containment Breach, which is, it's a cool game, but like, it was made by a few people with Unity. It's not this huge, like, project, you know? So, you get stuff like, yeah. I don't feel like I really need to defend SCP. It's cool. Check it out if you're interested in this at all. Oh, one thing I really want to do. So let me. So I want to link this YouTube channel. I think I can just copy and paste that. It should show up as a link. Yeah. Okay. This guy, the Volgan. His channel is very good for SCP. He basically just reads them off. He's got a good voice, and he really understands what makes a good SCP. So if you're interested in this at all, I highly recommend this channel. Let's see if we can find this one. I like the name, the Chrono Komodo. Okay. SCP-226. SCP-226 is to be kept in a replica of the room it was found in, an old Model 6 storage basement at the Redacted. Under no circumstances is the subject to be made aware of the fact that it is not still in the original room. Personal subject should not listen to the subject sing, as it is called mild internal bleeding for no discernible reason. Subject is to be fed 3 cats every morning at 5 a.m. sharp. Standard containment procedures still apply. Neutralized, please see below. I'm just quickly going. Why are you feeding it cats? Oh, well. Yeah, but why are you feeding it cats? Like, why specifically cats? SCP-223 was found in a small town. Oh, sorry. SCP-223 appears to be a sentient statue of Varanus Commodonius. No, Donusis. Doesn't matter. It's the Komodo dragon. It is 190 centimeters, 6 feet 3 inches long, and weighs 181.4 kilograms or 400 pounds. It is constructed of solid obsidian with trace amounts of an unknown metal alloy. Ugh. SCP-223 was found in the small town of Redacted, where it was brought to the attention of the Foundation through local rumors and the high rate of missing cats in the town. When SCP-223 is in its room, it will not leave or even attempt to do so at any given time. The subject, who refers to itself as Raiko, is generally talkative, holding long conversations with those who come to feed or clean it, and will aimlessly wander around the room. The subject speaks through 3 small holes in its head located in the tip of its snoot. They are shaped similar to those found on a common woodwind instrument such as a flute or ocarina. Personnel are reminded that blowing into these holes cause SCP-223 to feel great pain and may enrage subject. SCP-223 is almost completely harmless when it is contained within the replicated room, but when outside of it, subject displays the ability to manipulate local time to a sharp degree, but it is limited reversion time to up to a point when it exited the room. In such a situation, SCP personnel are granted immediate termination priority of the target, who is to be destroyed or immobilized as soon as possible. Subject is weak to armor-piercing anti-tank rounds and are capable of piercing its outer shell. Its underside is also highly fragile, vulnerable to conventional fire. If needed, subject can be immobilized by blowing into its speech holes. Subject was accidentally destroyed by Dr. Iceberg, Refector Kane Pathos Crow during routine target practice when the subject wandered out on the firing site of... Okay. What? Why is it being able to, like, manipulate time just, like, glazed over? Like, oh yeah, by the way, it can manipulate time. And the blowing in the holes thing. Like, did you just have someone walk up and just... I can't imagine how that went. Alright, let's see what else we got. Yeah, a lot of these are just a mess. I love whoever made this SCP though, the 100J. Just look, we take these SCPs, retcon them, and just be like, yeah, they were born from horse shit. They're just born from this pile of horse shit. You don't know where to begin at anymore. I don't either. Like, where do I go from here? Like, I'll just keep reading these. Let's see this one. Yeah. Good. It's not a long one either. SCP-151. Object class, Neutralized. Formerly Keter. Special containment procedures. Interactions with SCP-151 are to be conducted by female personnel only. Class D personnel convicted of violent crimes against women or children are to avoid SCP-151's presence. SCP-151's containment cells to be furnished with whatever amenities SCP-151 requests that are in compliance with SCP regulations. No attempts to hinder SCP-151 movements are to be made due to its highly destructive nature. Description: what appears to be a 4'4" albino human child male with a furry tail, wearing dark clothing. Interactions with containment teams show SCP-151 to be invulnerable. During its escape, SCP-151 showed signs of psychokinetic abilities, and it caused several barriers to explode in front of it. In order to allow SCP-151 has agreed to wear a tracking device to help prevent contact with personnel convicted of violent crimes against women or children, who are responsible for extreme violence, usually resulting in significant collateral damage. Document with a lot of numbers. Agent Redacted was exposed to SCP-028, but displayed no effects. 2 days later, Agent acquired 005 and used it to acquire SCP-150, and then made his way to SCP-040's chamber. Why are you bringing all these up? Upon Agent Redacted's entering the chamber, SCP-040 reacted, and Agent Redacted was transformed into Redacted. Agent Redacted now classified as SCP-151, less SCP-005 and SCP-150 and SCP-040's chamber proceeded to leave the compound. Though not met with violence from SCP-151, all attempts at containment failed. Whereabouts of SCP-151 are currently unknown. SCP-51 constitutes significant risk to both the Secretary and containment of all SCPs. It's recommended that it be apprehended and terminated at all costs. So, like... Okay, hold on. I want to find out what this is quick. We're going to quickly find out what this SCP is before it is screwing through it. Okay, so big problems with this SCP right off the beginning. When an SCP creates another SCP, it doesn't get classified as its own SCP. It becomes a subsection of that SCP. So in this case, this SCP was created by something that SCP-040 did to it. In that case, it would be SCP-0401 or 2 or whatever it would be in the line. So I can see why this one got redacted. I imagine that's probably why it just got outright redacted and turned into the horse shit. But yeah, it's really weird. Mobile Task Force Omega 7 Pandora's Box is currently tracking SCP-151 and is yet to make contact. Another thing I should mention about SCP is that there are a lot of things that you wouldn't get unless you do some digging on the actual website. Like Mobile Task Force Omega 7 is pretty famous with this whole thing. My favorite group that exists in the whole SCP lore is this group called Gamers Against Weed. And their page is really funny. But yeah, the Addendum 2. Mobile Task Force Omega 7 encouraged SCP-151 on completely redacted date. SCP-151 rendered all members of the task force unconscious except for SCP-076, who we challenged to a game of Go, creating SCP-152. The game ended in a draw. After the other members of the task force regained consciousness, SCP-151 escorted back to the facility for questioning. Hold on. Again, created SCP should go in the same SCP. Okay, an interview with Dr. So, Agent, care to explain your actions? Okay. Well, okay. I beg your pardon. Please refer to me as K. Why K? Because I'm a huge fan of Men in Black and Tommy Lee Jones. No. It's the closest analog you have to the first letter of my name. According to these records, Agent Redacted, none of your names begin with that letter. I am not Agent Bleh. You're just the unlucky soul who fit into my plan. And what plan was that? Wait until someone with access to the necessary objects use SCP-028 and gain access to knowledge esoteric and vague enough that it wouldn't be noticed initially. They plan instructions instead individual to have them created a suitable body for me to inhabit. So what are you? Extremely bored. You want to play chess? Well, so to refuse to respond to further question. Interview terminated. Bad joke. Boo. Little bit. But you'll learn I live in like movie references. Safety reasons, special containment procedures are modified, and description of the object updated to facilitate recognition by personnel. Blah. Blah. This one is just a nightmare because it's just like, okay, this SCP created this SCP, and then that SCP created this SCP. What I find interesting is it seems the one that got created, the like reading room thing, I guess. Like this isn't redacted. This is fine. Maybe it's just like better. I don't feel like reading it though. If we missed any. Was Ben the Cyborg, Spellbook, Nature's Fury, and this one doesn't even have a name. That's which one I should go on to next. Let's quickly check out this one. Spellbook. Yeah, so just give you one of those. What made me get into the SCP lore? I actually haven't answered this, so good question. I think what originally got me into SCP, what was it? Oh, so there was this game that was made a long time ago called SCP-087. In fact, we can find that SCP real quick. Oh, thanks, Genta. It's really great having you, and I look forward to seeing you again. Take care, and have a great night, or morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are. But yeah, so I got my SCP. There was this old game called SCP-087, and it's basically just you go down this long staircase that's infinite, and there's like a monster that like kills you in it, and it's completely random as to when it actually shows up. Hope to see you soon too. Night night. But yeah, you know, it's the same thing. Game was made by like one person, but you know, it was interesting, and it was enough to like get into it. And then there was Containment Breach, which is how most people learn of SCP. It's a horror game made with Unity that basically involves you being a Class D personnel in a facility when a containment breach happens. It has a lot of SCPs, like from this, strung throughout it. Some of them are really cool. Some of them are not so cool. I think we should I kind of want to move away from these joke ones. Just show you a few. Probably just do it this way. The stairwell. Yeah, this was the first introduction to SCP. And then I want to let's show the most famous one as well. And then let's see. Actually, is there more that are worth bringing up? Try to do this quick. But yeah, as you can see, there are thousands of these. Maybe in a later stream we'll just do like a random SCP stream. We'll just go through these and just click on them at random and just read through them. Heck, we might even do that tonight. I don't know how long I plan to stream. I'm having a lot of fun with this. Okay, but yeah, I'm getting off track. So these two are the but yeah, these two are the ones that most people got introduced to SCP with, and there were games made about them. Let's actually start with 173 because this is the original SCP. The game Containment Breach is pretty much made around like this specific one. So let's just quickly go through it. SCP-173, special object class Euclid, special containment procedures. SCP-173. Oh, you're gonna head out too, Neo? That's okay. It was great having you. You know, thanks for being here. I hope that you can be here next time. Yeah, it's just great having you. Have a good night. Alright. I think actually we'll probably just wrap up with these two. And we'll just call it a night. Talk about a little bit more stuff. And that'll be it. Okay. So, item SCP-173 is to be kept in a locked container at all times. When personnel must enter SCP-173's container, no fewer than 3 may enter at a time, and the door is to be relocked behind them. At all times, two persons must maintain direct eye contact with SCP-173 until all personnel have vacated and relocked the container. Description: Move to Site 19, 1993. Origin is as of yet unknown. Is constructed from concrete and rebar with traces of Krylon brand spray paint. SCP-173 is animate and extremely hostile. The object cannot move while in direct line of sight. Line of sight must not be broken at all times with SCP-173. Personnel assigned to enter container are instructed to alert one another before blinking. Object is reported to attack by snapping the neck at the base of the skull or by strangulation. In the event of an attack, personnel are to observe Class 4 hazardous object containment procedures. Personnel report sounds of scraping stone originating from within the container when no one is present inside. This is considered normal, and any change in this behavior should be reported to the acting HMCL supervisor on duty. The reddish brown substance on the floor is a combination of feces and blood. Origin of which material is unknown. The enclosure must be cleaned on a bi-weekly basis. And then, something entirely, unique to an SCP page. It has creator information. It lets you peek behind the magician's curtain a bit. The image used in SCP-173 article is an art piece, Untitled 2004, by Izumi Kato. The photograph was taken by Keisuke Yamamoto. All rights are reserved by the artist. A note of caution, SCP-173 is a secondary use of the image of the art piece, Untitled 2004, which was created by Izumi Kato. The concept of SCP-173 does not have any relationship with the artist's original concept of Untitled 2004. The sculpture, its likeness, and the photograph have not been released under any Creative Commons license. Only the text of this article is released under Creative Commons. In layman's terms, the picture is under copyright from Izumi Kato and Keisuke Yamamoto. Like, it's their creation, like this picture, but the SCP is entirely unrelated in terms of, like, the creation of the picture. The SCP exists because of the picture, but the picture does not exist because of the SCP. Yeah, so I think it kind of just seems like they saw this thing, thought it was weird, and wanted to make like a story around it. You know? And people just kept adding their own. Yes, I mean, these are really cool. Then last one we were going to look at, there's extra documents that make this one quite long. I think we'll skip those. Item number SCP-087, object class Euclid. SCP-087 is located on the campus of Redacted. The doorway leading to SCP-087 is constructed of reinforced steel with an electro-release lock mechanism. It has been disguised to resemble a janitorial closet consistent with the design of the building. The lock mechanism on the doorknob will not release unless reduction volts are applied in conjunction with counterclockwise rotation of the key. The inside of the door is lined with 6 centimeters of industrial foam padding. Due to the results of the final exploration, see document 0874, no personnel are permitted access to SCP-087. Description: SCP-087 is an unlit platform staircase. Stairs descending onto a 38-degree angle for 13 steps before reaching a semicircular platform approximately 3 meters in diameter. Descent direction rotates 180 degrees at each platform. The design of SCP limits subjects to a visual range of approximately 1.5 flights. A light source is required for any subject exploring SCP-087, and there are no lighting fixtures or windows present. Lighting sources of 75 watts are shown to be ineffective, as SCP-087 seems to absorb excess light. Just this big, dark, spiral staircase that goes down. It is unknown if SCP-087 has an endpoint. SCP-087 has undergone 4 video-recorded explorations by Class D personnel. Each subject conducting exploration has encountered SCP-087-1, which appears as a face with no visual pupils, nostrils, or mouth. The nature of SCP-087-1 is entirely unclear, but has been determined that it is not the source of the bleeding. Subjects exhibit feelings of intense paranoia and fear when faced with 087-1, but it's undetermined whether these said feelings are abnormal or simply natural reactions. Well, looking at this picture, it's probably a natural reaction. Addendum. Over a period of 2 weeks following exploration, 4 several members of the staff and students from the redacted campus reported knocking at a variable rate of 1 to 2 seconds per knock coming from the interior of SCP-087. The door leading to SCP-087 has been fitted with 6 centimeter thick industrial padding. All reports of the knocks have ceased. Authorized personnel may refer to documents 0871 through 0874 for transcripts of explanations 1 through 4. With the 4th one being redacted. How long are these? Pretty long. I just recommend, if you're interested, to check it out yourself. Find out what happened with all the explorations. I remember reading a long time ago because I like S.C.P. Yeah, and I think that is it for the S.C.P. stream. Went an hour and a half. I feel like that's pretty good. We're just, doing a little bit of reading. A few things I want to mention. I should be getting a capture card here real soon. So, I should be able to stream things off my Switch, PlayStation, and we'll have more variety. Other than that, yeah, honestly, there really isn't too much to say. I very much enjoyed this stream, and I would like to continue doing streams like it. And the feedback's been good, so I definitely am going to continue with doing streams where we just read or look at interesting stuff. If you have any suggestions, feel free to hit me up on my Twitter at HootsOliver. Yeah, on screen. And yeah, feel free to drop in anytime. I always schedule my streams usually a day in advance, and I always like to give some kind of a short heads up. So if you follow me on my Twitter, you'll know when I'm streaming again. I'm glad you like the stream for us, and again, I hope I can do more like this. Well, with that, I'm Oliver Hoots. I hope you all have a great morning. Have a great afternoon, morning, evening, or night. If you get that reference, I love you. Just kidding. I already love you. I love you all. Okay, have a great night. Bye.